Good afternoon.
Hey, just trying to wolf down some lunch here real quick.
Between hearings?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I will go ahead and call to order this hearing of May 9th, 2024 in the matter of appeal of Z0485-23. My name is Joe Turner. I am the county's hearings officer. I'll start with some brief announcements and a summary of the process that will follow, so everyone understands how you can participate in the hearing. I start by saying I'm not a county employee. I am licensed as an attorney and trained as a planner. I say that so you know you're getting a somewhat independent review of the appeal before me today. My role as the hearings officer is to conduct public hearings and make decisions about certain land use matters in Clackamas County. In making those decisions, I'm required to apply the city's existing laws. I'm not a policymaker. I don't have the authority to vary from or change the laws. If you think that the laws need to be changed, you can work with Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners to do that. But state law requires that this application be judged based on the laws in effect when the application was filed. As a hearings officer, I'm to provide an unbiased decision maker. I believe I am unbiased with regard to the application before me today. I have not had any pre-hearing contact. Excuse me. I've not had any pre-hearing contact with any of the parties regarding the substance of the application. And I don't have any interest in the subject property or any of the surrounding properties. But anyone has the right to challenge my impartiality, to argue that I'm biased in one way or another, and you can do that when it's your opportunity to testify. Procedure will follow. I'll start by asking staff to summarize their staff report, copies of which are available on the county's website. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to respond to the staff report, or I guess it's planning director decision in this case, in the appeal. The applicant will have the opportunity to respond, present their proposal and appeal. If anybody else appears and wants to say something about the application, they may do so. Then I'll give staff and the applicant the opportunity to respond to whatever testimony was offered. I'll close the hearing and announce what I'm going to do. In most cases, I try and issue a written decision within about 2 weeks after the close of the public record. I will send my decision to the county. The county will send it to parties of record. So anybody who testifies orally or in writing or is the applicant will be sure and receive a copy of my decision. It's important that all parties make their best case to me. My decisions are final for purposes of the county, but may be appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals or LUBA. However, LUBA generally will not allow new testimony and evidence on appeal. They'll decide any appeal based on the record before me. So if you feel it's important that myself or any future decision maker knows something about this application, you need to make sure it gets into the record before me. If anyone feels they need more time to prepare, you can ask me to hold the record open or continue hearing. If I hold the record open, you'll have the opportunity to submit additional written testimony and evidence before I make a decision. If I continue the hearing, we can come back and do this again at a later date. But whether the hearing is continued or the record is held open for any other purpose, State law requires that I hold the record open for an additional week for the applicant alone to submit a final written argument without any new evidence. The applicant can waive that right if they choose, but if anybody else wants me to hold the record open for any other purpose or to continue the hearing, you must make that request before the close of the hearing today. In addition, my decision must comply with state law that requires that I issue a final written decision within 150 days after the application was filed. So there's some limit to how long I can hold the record open or continue the hearing. When you testify, please begin by stating your name and your full mailing address. Please spell your last name so I get it right, although it looks like everybody's last names are appearing on my screen this time. If you represent someone else, please say so. And that concludes my hearing, my introduction rather, Ms. Fields.
This public hearing will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. Panelists for today's hearing, which include the hearings officer, county staff, and the applicant, have both audio and video capability. Audience members who have joined the meeting will have their mics muted unless they wish to testify, in which case they will be called upon to do so by the county staff moderator. Attendance members' videos will not be turned on at any time. Today's hearing is being recorded as required by law. The county will make every effort to post the recording on the county website later today. There is a designated time during the hearing when it will be open for testimony. The hearings officer will make it clear when this is. If you want to provide testimony, you will utilize the raise hand feature. Attendees on PC and iPad, you have a raise hand button on the Zoom bar that is either at the top or the bottom, depending on your device. When the moderator switches you over to provide testimony, your screen will look different for a little while. Primarily, you will see all participants' cameras, not just the one who is speaking. Staff will call upon you when it is time for you to provide testimony. Be sure to provide your name and mailing address when you begin. Once you have provided your testimony, your mic will be muted and your screen will be returned to normal. If the record is left open at the end of the hearing and you wish to submit additional written testimony, you can email that written testimony to myself, Joy Fields, at jfields@clackamas.us, or mail it to the Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division, located at 150 Beaver Creek Road, Oregon City, Oregon, 97045. The staff contact email address is also available on the webpage where you found the Zoom link for today's hearing. Testimony must be received by 4 p.m. on the day the record closes. People who testify and provide their mailing address will receive a copy of the hearings officer's written decision. If you do not wish to testify but would like to receive the decision, you must provide your email or standard mailing address by emailing it to the staff contact for the application or by entering it in the Zoom chat function during the hearing. Are you ready to have me go over my staff report?
Yes.
Okay. So file Z0485-23 was for a dwelling in conjunction with farm use. In the land use application, the applicant requested approval for a dwelling on the western portion of tax lot 100, which is approximately a 138-acre property zoned exclusive farm use. When staff reviewed the evidence provided in the application, the application was found to not contain enough evidence to show that the criteria was met for zoning development ordinance criteria 401.05C5A and 401.05C5C. Generally, the property was large enough to continue farming. There was evidence provided after the application was deemed incomplete that the property is still being farmed. The evidence provided included a lease agreement for someone to lease that land for farming. Prior to today's hearing, the applicant provided additional images showing cows back on the property. In the record, you will find aerial images that staff used to identify whether the property was currently being farmed when the application was being reviewed for completeness. With that, staff determined that it was continuing to be farmed. To note, the criteria for a dwelling in conjunction with farm use does not allow income from leasing the property to be counted towards the income for qualifying for a dwelling. And so the income identified in the lease agreement was not used in staff's determination of whether there was sufficient income from farming to qualify for a dwelling. It was entirely used to verify that the property was currently being farmed or leased to be farmed. After reviewing the application, it appeared that the applicant met the criteria except for the two that I mentioned previously. In our zoning code, the language in the code specifically says that the subject tract currently employed in farm use, on which the farm operator earned at least $80,000 in gross annual income from the sale of farm products for the last 2 years or 3 of the last 5 years. And based on the evidence provided, it did not appear that farm products were being sold from the land to generate the income. The evidence provided by the applicant indicated that the feed, being the grass that grew on the property and other forbs on the property, was valued at over $80,000 of value for 3 of the last 5 years prior to the submission of the application. Because the value of the grazing from the land was not the sale of farm products, staff found that the applicant did not meet the criteria in our zoning code. Prior to today's hearing, the applicant provided additional information on income, and it's found in Exhibit 14. And it shows again the value of the feed. And then in 2020, they added income from the sale of cattle. And you can see rent income or lease income currently. Additionally, as staff was reviewing the application materials, we found that there is a criteria in the code that says that no other dwelling on lands designated for exclusive farm use or mixed farm use is owned by the farm or ranch operator on which the farm or ranch operation. That does not say in Clackamas County. And in the application, the applicant noted that there were other pieces of the farm in Marion County. And so to complete the application, the applicant provided a title report. And in that title report, you can see the excerpt in the PowerPoint. It identifies the grantor as being Paul George and Megan Ray Kushnick, and Marititle LLC as trustee, and Jerome Ross and Rosa, sorry, and Carol Rosa as the survivor or beneficiary of the property. When staff looked at that property in Marion County using the Marion County tax information, it appears that to be zoned exclusive farm use, or EFU. And Google Images for the address included a house in 2013. When staff look at deeds, usually the grantor is selling the property and the grantee is receiving it. That deed that was supplied by the applicant in the title report does not match the records in the Marion County property report. And so there was insufficient evidence for staff to find that this criteria was met. The Marion County property report indicated that the Rosas sold the property to the Kushnicks. However, with this conflicting information before staff found that the criteria was not met. And on those 2 points, staff denied the application. The other criteria in section 401 for a dwelling in conjunction with farm use, staff believe that it's feasible to be met with conditions if these 2 items can be met. Some of those criteria include that the property owners sign a deed restriction saying they will not sue their neighbors for farm and forest practices. Those are the types of criteria that I am referencing. For participants that would like to request a copy of the hearings officer decision or provide additional testimony before the record closes, or if you have any process questions, I am happy to assist. With that, I will close my presentation, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. The page 7 of the staff report notes that, and also in your presentation here, that they proposed the dwelling on the western corner of the tax lot. This is a minor issue, but I just want to make sure I get it straight. Exhibit 2 of the application shows the proposed home site in the northeast corner. If that may be just a question for the applicant to clarify that, but just wanted to throw that one out there for everybody. Second question I had is, let me read this standard real quick. Under 40105C5A requires that the subject tract currently employed in farm use on which the farm operator earned at least $80,000 in gross income. If they're leasing the property to somebody else, are they the farm operator still? Or is that only applied retroactively to when they were the farm operator in the past before they leased it?
If you look at the definition of farm operator in 401, it includes that the farm operator makes the managing decisions for the farm.
Mm-hmm.
And
So the
there's
choice to
no,
lease the property? Is that a management decision?
it could be. But when staff discussed the denial or the incompletion, it was the incomplete notice of application. I believe that I had the discussion with Earl about whether the Rosas made daily decisions on the farm, and the applicant indicated in the phone conversation that they did. However, that could be part of the criteria that you look at. Staff was satisfied that the farm operator made the income in 2018 and 2019 and 2020 if the value of the feed would count as the income.
Okay,
So if the value of the feed counts as income, which based on the fact that it wasn't sold, staff did not find that it counted as the income, but the farm operator that made that income is the applicant and the property owner.
one of the neighbor comments notes that the applicant's currently primary residence in Arizona, so I didn't see that addressed. I mean, if they're in Arizona, how are they operating the farm? So, okay, they just want to throw those
That would
out
be
there.
a good question for the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Is that it from staff then at this point?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Fields. Mr. Kirk, I understand you're representing the applicants.
Yes, I'm representing the applicant and they might have some input on this also.
Sure, I figured.
Yes.
Can you state your name for the record, just so we
yes.
know?
Earl Kirk. My address is 4881 Skyline Road South, Salem, Oregon, 97306.
Thank you.
For the record, we have corrected the documentation that we turned in. It was a new exhibit and we have the settling statement. What that was a sale. The reason it was wrote the way it was on the first one, it was a 1031 exchange. And so the title company had to touch the money. The Rosas couldn't. We have since then provided in an exhibit to you guys the settlement statement for that farm, and that farm was sold. And so
That's the Marion County property.
yes,
Okay.
that was the one that gave them an additional dwelling on an EFU property.
It was a what? What's the number? 1090 what?
It was a
Exchange.
1031 exchange.
10 what?
1031.
31. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to make my note clear so I can.
And that's
I
why
understand. I know what you mean.
Yeah, that's why the grantor and the grantee was
Yeah.
different. And we have provided the final settlement statement from that sale.
Yeah.
So that should become null and valid as far as owning another dwelling on EFU property. The other area that I wanted to address, and we have provided additional exhibits, and that was on the sale of farm products. We have provided you guys with 3 years of the Schedule F tax form, which states how much income they made on their products that they sold from their dairy, and also the amount of feed each additional year that or each year that was designated. And that most of that feed came off that property because that 138 acres is what they grew to feed their dairy. And I've been giving you year 20, year 19, and year 18, and the sales of farm products are in 20 was 649,944. In 2019 it was over $1 million, and in 18 it was over $1 million, and that's because they were getting 20 was less because they were preparing to sell the farm, to sell the cattle. We've also provided with that sale of cattle the additional amount of money that was gained from the sale of the cattle, which was over $400,000, which I believe I've seen on on the screen earlier. So that was also additional exhibits that we provided for that point. The other point is, yes, we have no problem doing a deed restriction. Once we have our approval, obviously, we would have done that. If we had an approval, that would have been done by now, but that will be
Sure.
done. The other point I wanted to make is as far as managing the farm, they are managing the farm. They do don't have a house in the area in Marion County. And so they do plan on coming back and living on site, being the manager of the farm, and doing a cattle stocking program each year. Right now, they've been back. When they come back, they got to stay in town. They got to rent a motel. And it would just be a lot easier for them if they could have their dwelling in conjunction with that 138 acres. Jerome, do you want to talk about the location of your house? Do you want to?
Yes. So it's,
Can I get you, a couple of things. Can you move closer to your phone and can you give us your name and
can
address?
you hear me now?
We can, but you're not very loud. Can you move, Mr. Kirk, can you move your phone closer to the?
Yeah, I'm doing it.
That might help.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. And can you tell us your name? I know it's all over the place, but
Jerome Rosa.
thank you, Mr. Rhodes. So go ahead.
So what was your question again, sir?
Jerome, I wanted you to address the location of the house that he was concerned
Oh,
about.
okay, yes. So it is in the east corner.
Okay, that's what you show on your plan. Staff had it in the
Yes,
northwest.
that's where, correct. The northwest is that 3 acres, that 3.47 acres that was divided off in 1981. That was long before our time.
Yeah,
But then after that was divided up, then, you know, as long as you meet the criteria, the 138 acres, and I'm reading, you know, the information that we got from Fred Kaiser when this was approved by Clackamas County on January 4th, 1982, that states that we can put another
yes.
dwelling in as long as we meet the criteria.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. That's not a concern. I just wanted to make sure I was correct about that. There appeared to be a conflict in the staff report about where it was located. You've corrected that, so.
Yeah, it's just that west corner right there by Wildcat Road.
I'm east,
Just up there on.
west or east?
Northeast.
Northeast. Okay, yeah, that's what it shows in the plan. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Anything else? Go ahead.
So based on that, I believe we have brought forth the evidence that we needed to meet the criteria. If there's anything else that we need to do, it basically seems like we provided the ones that we did not meet in the first go around, and we've met them in the second go around, and we're hoping that we can have a good decision and move forward.
Thank you. Just for the record, does anybody else want to say anything? Actually, looking at the list, it's just staff and the applicant, so there's nobody else that's not staff and the applicant. Ms. Fields, yes. So coming back to you next.
Earl, you mentioned that you have emailed or provided the Schedule F.
Yeah,
I don't know that I have received those.
well, I turned them in the day I walked up there and turned in our appeal forms. They were
Okay,
all
thank you.
I
attached.
had seen them, but now when I was
So
scrolling.
it was
here-
attached to the appeal form.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Okay.
you had that and
Okay,
you
that's
had
where I
the
saw it.
new, you had the new settlement statement
Okay.
for the farm in Marion County that showed the sale of that. So, yeah, but they
I
were
have
attached to
received-
that.
I have received several emails from you and I have saved each of them as
know.
additional exhibits. I just wanted to make sure that I had received all of the documentation that you had provided. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know that, and I appreciate your review and let me know that you received them. because we have sent in several additional exhibits, on case studies and also on the cattle operation as of today. So, but if you didn't receive those, you should have, because they were handed in with my appeal form. I drove up there. I do have them if you need them.
They are in the record. I've got a copy I'm looking
All
at
right.
right now, and they were attached to
Good.
the appeal, so they're included with that exhibit. Ms. Fields, anything further from staff?
No.
I'm
I'm sorry.
Carol Rosa, and
Hi,
I
Ms. Rosa.
Uh,
Just a second. Let me get back. I switched screen. There we go. Now I'm back. Carol Rose. Okay. Go ahead, Ms.
Yes,
Rosa.
I just wanted to clarify that the wire and the canceled check regarding the sale of cattle from 2020 was received and is in record, and that those funds were trying to fulfill our obligation as far as the average of those 3 years for over $80,000 a year. And I wanted to verify that those were received.
Yes, they were.
Okay, good. I was just looking.
Good. And then additionally, I would like to speak regarding our location. Just like everyone else in life, we all have things that change in the course of our life. When we bought the ranch there, and countless dollars and hours bringing it back to life with the intent that someday this would be our retirement. And in order to raise cattle, you have to either have hired people there or you need to live there yourself. And being responsible for a live animal, it takes a lot of time. And the only way we can honorably do our job and do it to the best of our abilities is to be there located. We plan on having a stocker operation to where we will be raising cattle from February until November and then selling them. And this is a plan we've had in place for a very, very long time. And I hope that you'll consider the fact we've raised cattle out there before, we sold those cattle, and this is our intent going forward, but with beef stock instead. And I want you to know we're true farmers, and this was the sole income for our family and our children for over 35 years. And going forward, we're going to be true farmers and handle that ground accordingly.
Thank you, Ms. Rosa.
This is
Mr. Rosa?
Jerome again. And I agree with everything that my wife just said. So the amount of cattle that we showed, the wire to Aurora Organic, was 372,200. The cattle sold in August, heifers were loaded off right from that farm, were 84,000. So the 307 head that we listed, and there was quite a bit more cattle that we didn't include on here that we sold, but this more than fills our $80,000 number per year. Was $456,000 that were sold, and every one of those animals were raised on that farm.
Mr. Rosa, the 476,000 you mentioned, what year was that?
456,000.
Or 56? I'm sorry. There's a little...
456,312, and that was in July and August of 2020.
Okay, thank you.
Two transactions. One was a wire transfer of Aurora Organic Dairy from Colorado when they took 215 head, and the other transaction was in August of 20, sold to Price Dairy in Cloverdale, Oregon. Those two transactions, 456,000. All of those cattle were raised there. We do have one concern regarding our tax returns and Schedule F. We do have for instance, our social security number on there. And we are concerned that
Sure.
public information, getting a hold of that could compromise our financial security.
It's been
That's-
blacked out on my copy, so that should, the social security number has. I was just gonna ask staff if they do that, but they beat me to
Yeah,
it. So,
it's been blacked out.
yeah, the
Okay,
copy
good.
I have, it's been blacked out.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Yeah, good idea to check that. I didn't even think about that, but
Well, we needed that when we turned it in, but I knew they'd take care of it, and protect it.
okay.
Okay, yeah, because when we looked up the information online, it wasn't blacked out. So, yeah.
Okay.
So
Ms.
the
Fields,
average per year over 5 years of that amount is 91,262, just from those two transactions alone, from the cattle that were raised on that property. To clarify something that my wife said about a stalker operation, which you probably maybe don't understand. But what a stalker operation is you buy calves in the springtime sometime. You raise them on the grass through the summer, and then you sell them in the fall where they'll go off to a feedlot to get finished. And I was executive director of the Oregon Cattlemen's Association for 6 years, and a lot of people aren't familiar with what that term is. And that's a definition of what that term is. Some refer to it as a backgrounder operation, but that's what this will be. It will not be a cow-calf operation. So there will not be cattle out there through the winter time. I did some of the photos that the staff had gotten before. Cattle, especially when it's hot and in the summertime and seasonally, they'll be under the trees and those kinds of things like that. So when you're looking at Google search or over kind of photos like that, it's not a replica of what is actually occurring. And we have provided recent current photos of the cattle that are out there now as we speak, and they're doing phenomenally well.
Thank
We
you.
are real farmers. We're not hobby farmers. We are real hobby farmers. We just want to have a place to take care of our cattle.
Thank you, Mr. Rosa. Ms. Fields, have you had the chance to look at the Schedule F, and do you have any opinion about whether the A is met based on that?
I am pulling up the form that can be seen in our electronic system to make sure that it's blacked out.
No, okay, I appreciate you checking it. I wonder if you had any opinion about what the
Joy, I'm
Schedule F
checking on
says.
that if you want to address. Mr.
Do you
Turner's
believe,
question.
do you believe the standard, subsection 40105C5A is met based on the evidence that they presented in response to the appeal?
It appears that way.
Okay. Sorry, my phone. I thank you. I think I agree. But just wanted to check. And C, I think it's clearly met. They don't own their property in Marion County anymore based on the evidence. You agree with that? Okay, thank you. Want to make sure I'm not missing something. Anything
you.
else you want to add, Mr. Kirk or Mr. and Mrs. Rosa?
I don't think, other than if we can keep the record open, depending on, how this
Sure.
goes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rosa?
Yes, I agree with what Mr. Kirk said. Depending on how this goes, we would like to request to keep the record open for new evidence and argument.
I'm happy to provide that.
If in fact that is necessary.
Super, thank you.
I'm required to provide it. How long would you need? You've got a minimum of a week, but if you'd like more, I'm happy to do that too. Where are we with a 150-day clock? I think we're fine, but just in check.
Yeah, we're in good shape. Don't know exactly where we're at.
Ms. Fields, you're muted.
I will confirm with my record and see exactly where we are.
Okay. I remember looking, but I didn't write it down.
July 8th is the Monday.
Okay. Plenty of
Um,
time,
That 150 days is up.
plenty of time. Okay, Mr. Kirk or Mr. Rosa, how long would you like to have me hold the record open? Is a week sufficient? Do you want longer?
We need,
I would say at least 2 weeks.
Okay.
I mean,
Ms. Fields?
if this goes, if we've answered all your questions today, then, that won't be necessary, but if not, then we would be glad to provide additional evidence or arguments for our position.
Okay. Ms. Fields, do you want the opportunity to review whatever they submit? No? Okay.
No.
So with that, I'm going to close the hearing and I'll hold the record open for 2 weeks.
Okay.
Let me grab my calendar. I'll give you a specific date. So today's the 9th, so I'll hold it up until the 23rd of May at 4 p.m. Anything you submit has to be physically received by the county by 4 p.m. on the 23rd of May. And I'll try to get my decision out within 2 weeks, but it'd be June 6th. Yeah,
Well,
that should be no problem.
So we would want to be beyond your decision if your decision, doesn't agree with where we're at. Is that possible?
that's what he's asking. If we can go beyond your decision and leaving the record open for further arguments, if,
Beyond staff's decision, yeah.
yeah,
And that's what you've requested, I understand, and I'm happy to grant that.
2 weeks after the decision.
The record cannot be left open past the hearings officer decision.
Right.
The hearings officer has to consider everything, all the pieces of evidence before making the decision. And so you're not able to request the record to be left open past the hearings officer decision.
Correct.
so we can provide the hearing officer with additional exhibits up until then.
Yes. And then I'll
Okay.
make my decision based on that additional evidence and what's in the record
Okay.
already in the test.
We have one more additional exhibit that we'll be turning in.
Great. Okay.
Over and above what we turned in up until now.
Okay. Thank you.
That sound
All right,
good,
staff.
Jerome?
Yes.
Yes.
During the open record, if you can provide me an updated exhibit list or at the close of with the final one in there, just it makes it easier if I can refer to exhibit number rather than trying to describe an exhibit.
Yeah.
So with that,
And I just send that to you, Joy?
Yes, and while the record is open, Earl, as I said, I have saved all of the documents you have sent to me in the file, and I have uploaded them to our electronic system as exhibits.
Okay.
But if you see others that you thought you sent, I was having issues with my email for a while, so please let me know.
Yep, I'll go through them and check them off because I know what we sent you, so great.
great. Okay.
And there is one attendee on
Oh.
the,
Didn't see them. Thank you for pointing that out. Jojo 217, would you like to say anything about this application or this appeal? If you do, please raise your hand. By click on the raise your hand button on your Zoom bar. And I'm pausing to give you the chance to find that and do that if you want to say something. And we're not seeing a raised hand, so I'm not seeing that. So with that, I'm going to close the hearing. As I said, I'm going to hold the record open for the applicant's the applicant to submit new evidence.
Excuse me, Mr.
Until-
Turner.
Yes.
Just for clarification, I've been reviewing the documents that are posted through our web page.
Right.
And the social security numbers have been blacked out.
Okay, great. Thank you. I figured they had been since it was on my copy, but I appreciate you checking. So closing the hearing, holding the record open till 4 o'clock on the 23rd of May. Anything you submit has to be physically received by the county by 4 o'clock on the 23rd. And then I'll try to get my decision out within 2 weeks after that. That
Super.
concludes our hearing. Thank you all. Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you.